Oh, hi everybody, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show on the 3rd of July 2019, 4th of July tomorrow, of course, and it really looks like the weather across the country definitely has a summertime feel to it, obviously. We are in this we're in this stretch here where we are clearly out of the spring type weather patterns. We're a little early with regards to dealing with tropical storms and hurricanes, so we're sort of in this little land of limbo. So it makes the weather a bit more straightforward. Nonetheless, there's always interesting things going on and stuff that we could learn from watching these weather patterns, and oftentimes the tricks that you might pick up in analyzing the weather this time of year is something that you can certainly put in your little bag of experience and take it along with you when you get to those tougher months, especially when we get to the winter. I don't really see any huge problems for those of you in my area from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. For tomorrow, certainly, it looks like much of the area is going to be thunderstorm free. In fact, there may be a good deal of sunshine tomorrow, particularly along coastal areas. If there's going to be a shower or thunderstorm, it's likely to be in spots well inland. You go west of, the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border westward, there you might see a few pop-ups, but really the thunderstorm activity is going to be at a minimum. And if you are headed out to 4th of July festivities during the day, you're headed to the beaches, or perhaps tomorrow night you're heading into any one of a number of fireworks shows, including the one in New York City, you'll have no issues other than the fact that it's going to be rather warm and rather humid. And the next important chance of thunderstorms, I think, for the east comes on Saturday. There will be some on Friday, but I think the next important event is probably going to come on Saturday, because that's when we're going to get an actual cold front coming through here and change things a bit for early next week. We're going to be getting into a shot of dry air coming down from Canada. And the overall pattern, by the way, continues to favor this idea of weather fronts coming through every 3 or 4 days, which means it really doesn't have a whole lot of time to get too hot or to get too humid. Let me just quickly, we'll do go to WPC's rainfall forecast map for the next 7 days. Incidentally, I will be on modified schedule over the next 10 days as well, and I'll explain that to you guys a little bit later on. So rainfall amounts seem to be a bit excessive for the coastal Carolinas down to Florida and offshore. Actually, there are some hints that some sort of low may form at some point on the frontal boundary that's going to be moving offshore later on this week. And that, not the one for Sunday, but there's one behind it that may cause some issues with regards to rainfall. And you can see the WPC kind of picked up on this by showing some 5-inch plus rain amounts from the North Carolina coast down into North Florida and offshore. The Northeast, kind of tails off a bit, but you've got these pockets of 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. Lesser rains as you head up into northern New England. You have a slightly robust area up for the northern plains with some areas showing some several-inch amounts, while the western part of the Gulf Coast is, relatively speaking, on the dry side, and the west coast is on the dry side. And of course, isolated thunderstorms are going to wreak havoc this time of year, which means that you may be in a spot where only 1/2 inch is forecast, but if you get into one of the stronger thunderstorms, you wind up with amounts that are that much higher. And by the way, to emphasize the fact of just how quiet it really is, when we pick up on the watches and warnings map, I mean, you do have some severe thunderstorm watches up for parts of northeastern Wyoming into western South Dakota, parts of North Dakota. A few pockets here and there where we have some flood watches up, and those red specks are basically some localized flash flood warnings. That's really about it. Small area in southeast Georgia and northeast Florida where it's been exceptionally hot. with temperatures well into the 90s and heat indices up at around 110. But in terms of widespread heat, you're really not seeing it. It's much more, it's kind of a typical summer in a lot of ways, with temperatures probably averaging closer to normal, or the atmosphere behaving that way. And it kind of makes sense, that makes sense too, given the upper air pattern, which has been more this sort of gentle west to east type pattern lately, rather than dealing with big upper highs building up in the westerlies, pulling up all the way into Canada. We've had a lot of amplitude in the pattern, deep troughs, stronger ridges, but they come and go. So that has, I think, given a sense of normalization in terms of the overall summer weather. Here's SPC's view tonight. Got a pretty big area of marginal risk from the Carolinas and Virginia, and then it kind of has snakes across the Ohio Valley and then on up into the northern plains, where we have that larger area of slight risk, and there you have your severe thunderstorm watches. And of course, when it comes to severe weather, you guys know the drill. Make sure you go to your local National Weather Service office page by going to weather.gov, because obviously if you're watching this on a replay, the stuff you're seeing is dated. The satellite loop tonight, disappear, there we go. A lot of blow-ups with thunderstorms across the eastern half of the United States, and this is reflecting the very warm, humid conditions that we're seeing, that tropical air that has been pulled up northward thanks to a ridge in the Gulf states and in the southeast. So you're getting these pop-up areas of storms, and we have a short wave that is moving through the northern plains and into the northern Rockies, so that explains the severe weather that's going on there, and also getting some moisture from the Gulf of Mexico that's moving northward into Texas. But other than that, we don't have any, you're not really seeing any of these wrapped up shortwave troughs that you can sometimes see with that lovely signature twist that we always look for in terms of trying to get a gauge of the intensity of a particular weather system. Let's now move along. I want to show you something here. I've got, of course, we've had out in the Pacific, after an extremely slow start, the third latest starting hurricane season on record. I think you'd like this loop of Hurricane Barbara way out in the Pacific. It's going to die in the Pacific, in the graveyard out there that's between the Baja Peninsula and Hawaii. But you can still see a fairly well-defined eye. But unlike earlier today, and last night in particular, where the eye was clearly visible, we've seen deterioration here as the day is worn on, and it's happening on schedule. This system is going to disappear in the next day or two, as it now is moving over progressively colder water. But I wanted to just show you here just how, in a sense, how classic this is. As a category, was almost a 5, it's now a 3. I believe top winds on the last advisory were 125 miles an hour, but still, you can see the bands and the circular nature, how really impressive this does look on the satellite. But as impressive as it looked even more impressive back 24 hours ago. And 24 hours from now, you may not even recognize it. So there'll be a system behind this one. Again, another one destined for the Pacific graveyard, as most of these systems that form out there wind up just dying out. Here's a view here as far as temperatures at 7 o'clock in dew points. It's got to be certainly lovely to see those dew points up around 70 or so. We don't have a strong mechanism to trigger off widespread thunderstorm activity. So if you look at the radar echoes as of 7:39, you see they're just very widely scattered, kind of blotchy. Had a big cell move over Atlantic City about an hour or so ago. That's moved now offshore. The green that you see from coastal New Jersey down into Delaware, those are coastal flood advisories that are up for the high tide, some minor coastal flooding because we just came off a full moon. And of course, remember yesterday we had the solar eclipse. I did put up a video of the solar eclipse last night of how it looked on the full disk satellite picture, and it was kind of cool because you see the sun rising and the sunrise moving across from east to west, and at the same time you see this black dot, was what it looked like, a giant black dot, which was with the eclipse, moving very rapidly from east to west. And then when it got to the coast of South America, in that narrow area where it was visible, you saw the sunset coming and catching up to it. So if you haven't looked at it, it's in the library. It's in my video library, and you should be able to find it. It's a short video, very quick, just to show you the loop of the what the eclipse looked like on the full disk satellite loop. On up to the north, in upstate New York and in the Hudson Valley, it's a little more reasonable. Temperatures were in the low to mid 80s right now. We've got spots, some places where the dew points are running in the low 60s, even a few 50s showing up, but there are also some pockets where the dew points are up around 70. And then you head up into New England, where you're looking at dew points in the mostly mid 50s to low 60s, and temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. So not too bad, and it isn't too shabby in Maine either, with temperatures mostly in the 70s and dew points running in the 50s. Some showers and thunderstorms there, looking over into southern New Brunswick, south of Fredericton, and over Nova Scotia right now. We don't have much going on. I like this new map view that you can find on the Mount Holly website from the Weather Service. So it's weather.gov/PHI, P as in Paul. You can it's right on the home page, and you can bring it up, and there's all different parameters you can set for this. But I'm really liking this because we can, drag it up into eastern Canada, so our friends in Nova Scotia and in Newfoundland can see their observations. Kind of cool in Newfoundland now, with temperatures in the 40s and low 50s. And remember, there's been a storm that was sitting south and east of Nova Scotia, heading toward Newfoundland. That's been has been responsible for the weather pattern that we've had here this week. Meanwhile, down in Virginia and in North Carolina, we still have some residual low 90s, and you start to get into some more scattered shower and thunderstorm activity. A couple of flash flood warnings showing up there in a small area in northwestern West Virginia and southeastern Ohio. But we're seeing clusters of showers and thunderstorms in Johnny Quest country, in the western mountains of Virginia, and you have some clusters of showers and thunderstorms further back into parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, and all of this, of course, being caused by that very warm, humid air mass, sun going to work on it, and a few little ripples in the upper atmosphere, and you're getting these thunderstorms to develop. Not too much really in terms of what's on the surface map tonight. You can see the surface high that is down in the southern states over Mississippi, and that stationary front that's being analyzed from Chicago to just south of Detroit into northwestern PA. It's hard to tell the difference too much between the air mass to the north of the front and the one to the south, other than the fact that the dew points are a little bit lower with the high that is up in northern Michigan. And then you push up into Canada, and there's the front that we're waiting for. That's probably going to get here on late Saturday, and behind that is a nice, decent shot of dry and slightly cooler air that will be coming into play. Radar as of 7:30 Eastern Time, and you see the showers and storms that are occurring in the Ohio Valley, back up through the upper Mississippi Valley, also in and around the southeast and down to Florida. Some showers and storms in parts of East Texas and into Louisiana, and then scattered up through parts of the Dakotas and back up into the northern Rockies. It's a typical early July type of radar, I guess. So here's the upper air on the new GFS. And going back to Sunday, of course, when that wicked trough swung through the northeast, that has pulled out now, and we are getting some ridging going on in between that and a trough that is set up from south central Canada down into the southwest. And by the way, that wrapped up cyclone on the lower left, on the upper air, that is Hurricane Barbara. which is now we're into, this is the current time now, 8 o'clock Eastern time on the GFS. And I'm sorry, let me back this up. So here we are. It's the holiday tomorrow, and I keep thinking it's Friday night. Okay, that's where my brain is at. This is what it looks like right now at 8 o'clock this evening. So you've got your upper low over Newfoundland, which explains why you've got those temperatures there in the 40s and low 50s. Trough out in the west, cyclone, upper low sitting in south central Canada, Hurricane Barbara, all wrapped up there. And we're going to move it along going into Friday evening, and you can see how Barbara winds up just weakening as it moves northwest and reaches 20 north. And it'll probably weaken faster than modeled. In the meantime, the flow across the United States, of course, the trough in the west kind of flattens out a bit, and you've got this westerly flow that runs from the Pacific Northwest. There's a little bit of ridging going on here along the east coast, pushing the bottom part of that jet stream a little bit further to the north for Friday, only to have it drop southward come Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And that is the cold front that we're going to be waiting for. Once again, the westerly winds of the upper atmosphere pretty far to the south of normal down into Southern California. Then they lift up a bit going into the northern plains and then come back down into the east underneath this upper low that's near Labrador. What we're seeing here is a general tendency for troughing to want to continue in the east. We have a blocky look to things up near Greenland. There's an upper high up there, and that's basically suppressing the jet southward into the eastern part of the United States. And you also have this rather long jet across the Pacific that's bringing weather systems into the west, and that, of course, was responsible for some of the troughing that's there now. But over time, we are going to see a low drop into the Gulf of Alaska. That's going to allow a ridge to build up in the west, and more troughing coming down into the eastern United States in the longer term. Now, I will just make this observation, and I mentioned it on one of my posts earlier today, that if this troughing persists in the east as we get into August and September, obviously that is going to be important with regards to any kind of tropical cyclone development, because if you've got a trough in the east, you do then run the risk that something could wind up impacting the east coast. That being said, you can have a trough in the east. The east, as I've said many times, is a big place. We could be referring to right off the east coast, right along the east coast, just inland of the east coast, or down the Appalachians. Or perhaps it's a broad trough that's in the east that kind of has a gentle troughing that runs, say, from the Mississippi Valley to the east coast. All of that makes a difference in terms of what outcomes might be with tropical systems down the road. They could very well have troughing in the east that winds up recurving everything because the trough is too far east. Or perhaps if it's far enough west, they may have impact in the southeast or mid-Atlantic and northeast, or they could even have impact further west than that if the trough is say closer to 85 or 90, and then you're talking about maybe impacts in the Gulf of Mexico. So all of that, of course, is in theory, but I would just say that if we keep seeing this trough in the east, it is something that I think is worth paying attention to for the longer term. Now, as far as the weather in the short term is concerned, as I said earlier, I don't think we're going to see much of any issues here going for overnight and for tomorrow. We're talking about, at best, some pockets of thunderstorms. I think it's probably better if I use what the GFS thinks the radar is going to look like for tomorrow, so you can get a view of the whole country. And tomorrow evening, here's tomorrow afternoon, here's tomorrow evening, so you can see there's some pockets of showers and thunderstorms in inland South North Carolina, Virginia, and then a few of them also up into central PA. Friday, you probably get a little bit more, And then Saturday's the day where we're going to have this cold front approaching and moving through for Saturday evening. And I think this one might have more, is going to be the one that has more punch to it, and that we could see more numerous showers and thunderstorms along the frontal boundary later Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. The Storm Prediction Center's Day 3 forecast is will be out tomorrow for Saturday, so we'll see what they do with this. My suspicion is that they'll put a marginal risk, but I think you can make an argument that there could be an area of slight risk for parts of the Northeast down into the northern mid-Atlantic with this front. And assuming it keeps on moving, which is an assumption because it actually, the southern end of this front is going to get hung up to some extent, and you can see it here by Monday afternoon. You've got an east-west band of showers and storms with a low being forecast by the model somewhere in southeastern Georgia. But you've got this nice high coming down into Michigan, and that means lower humidity for not so much on Sunday. In New England, yes. Upstate New York, yes. Down from New York City southward to D.C., not so much. And Monday, I think, is the day where you're going to see those dew points drop down into Maryland and Northern Virginia. But later on next week, you have a second front approaching here, coming into the Western Lakes. And notice that a wave develops off the South Carolina coast. Now, sometimes, judging from the look of what the GFS is doing here, it does look like this wave the model is trying to show this to be a tropical system. With the very tight-looking isobars east of the North Carolina coast later next week. But this is just model speculation at this point. There probably will be some kind of a wave that develops on that front, but you've got this next front coming down in that trough to the east that would kick it out anyhow. So it doesn't matter one way or the other. However, but it is, the model's been kind of doing this. The GFS has been kind of doing this for the last few days. We'll see if it keeps carrying through. When it comes in, when it has it inside the 5-day time frame, then we'll get into it a bit more. So that would be maybe along about, we're talking about the middle part of next week. So if we still see this on the models come Saturday and Sunday, then we'll discuss it a bit further. But nonetheless, another front comes through. Again, with that trough, we want to be in the east, so we may see some showers and storms late in the week, and then another shot of dry air that comes in behind it, and then another front after that, and another shot of dry air behind it. Old frontal boundaries that get far enough south this time of year, that get off the southeast coast and into the Gulf of Mexico, do need to be watched for possible tropical cyclone development. That's just something that happens from time to time. There's nothing new here. You go back, you could find stretches of years where it was quite common, and then you can find stretches of years and seasons where that is rather rare. All right, so I guess to sum it up, it's the 4th of July. It's the 4th of July 4-day weekend, unless you started it last Friday, in which case you've got a 9-day weekend because you had the whole week off. If you're in much of the northern mid-Atlantic and on up into southern New England, the weather has been pretty good, and you picked quite well. Okay, Robert Hurley, Johnny Quest, Daniel Islas, nice to see you on board. We've got Anthony Orr, Chuck Cardillo, Mirtha Gunter, Javon Perry, forever waiting for his thunderstorms in mass. Car recalls, nice to see you here on board. Johnny Quest, Charlie Baker, James NASCAR fan. I did also see earlier the chairman, Scott Briller. His mom's getting better day by day. He jumped on early and now is starting a long holiday weekend. So that's good for him. Javon, I know it's going to be very humid, like in the 70s in terms of dew points, and that could cause a lot of heavy rains with storms on Saturday. Is it possible that a few of those storms could be strong or severe? As I said, Javon, tomorrow we'll see what SPC does with it. When I was looking at the dynamics, I certainly think that they'll probably have at least a marginal risk area, and I wouldn't shock me if they wind up with showing a small area of slight risk. Wouldn't rule it out. And by the way, marginal risk might be all it takes with regards to getting an isolated severe thunderstorm to develop, which we saw on Sunday. But that was a different scenario on Sunday for me, in that we had a really deep trough with that upper low coming down to the east. So this is a bit different with the approaching cold front. But still, you could have enough forcing with that front to produce some strong storms. Let's see what SPC does with it tomorrow. But I'll bet they have the marginal risk for southeastern and southern New England all the way back south and west of there. Chris Alley, good to see you on board. Did I say Charlie Baker? If not, hi Charlie Baker. And just make sure I get everybody here. I don't think I left anybody out. Oh, D.U. Nankumar is on here too. So nice, Jason Barry, Deshaun Robinson. Will we see Barry off the Carolinas? As I said, I just finished up Deshaun. Let's wait till Saturday to see if models are still doing what they're doing. The European really didn't do very much with it, by the way. The GFS likes to do that sort of thing. The Canadian, and I didn't even look at the Canadian. Did the Canadian spin that up? Remember, the Canadian will spin everything in its path that it can. And actually, it didn't really quite do that. This will be an interesting test for the new GFS to see if the GFS upgrade is correct on this. The Canadian does actually. The Canadian's got a bit of a different look here because it brings that front through here, hangs it up, and then it's got more energy coming around with a low off the Virginia coast on Sunday night into Monday. The GFS has a much flatter look to this. So first wave goes out, second wave is there on the Canadian, but it really doesn't do much with it. There it is. I mean, it does have something there. Let's look. Let me just check the European. And we don't have a preset map for it, but even the European has it actually. So here's the European for Sunday night, Monday. This would argue for lingering clouds on Sunday until the low gets out far enough that you can actually bring those dry dew points in. And you know what? Since I have the map up here, let's bring the map back up full screen. And then your big high builds in, and then a second low develops out and offshore. So all the models seem to have something going on for later next week off the southeast coast, but the upper air is all wrong. So if you look at the upper air, you've got a trough pulling out, and basically a west-southwest flow. Even if you want to argue that that upper low were to get left behind, there comes the next short wave that's just going to come down and kick it out. You see that? See how it just comes down and just like a punter, just kind of like the kicker at kicking a field goal. That trough just kicks it on out to the northeast. So that would not be an issue for us. I know a couple of the models have spun it up toward Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, but I would just, I would certainly not make, draw any conclusions whatsoever at this stage of the game with something like this. And just like with snowstorms, by the way, the first one of the season is one that is always that is somewhat challenging. Okay, let's put it that way. I want to bring up the dew point map on the GFS so we can at least think about the lower humidity that might be coming. All right, so let's just run it back. So here we go. So here's Saturday, by the way. These dew points really shoot up. This is Friday night. Saturday afternoon, you've got 70 plus dew points all the way up into Massachusetts and near 70 in southeastern Maine. The atmosphere is pretty juiced up everywhere in the Ohio Valley to the East Coast. And then this is Saturday afternoon, you've got mid 70 dew points on up through parts of Pennsylvania into upstate New York and in areas into Connecticut and Massachusetts. Now here's the drier air that tries to get in here on Sunday, but it has to, it's waiting for that one wave to develop and move out. And then finally on Monday, you start to get that drier push, those 60 dew points, the 60-degree dew point line dropping down into Maryland and Delaware. And then moving into Tuesday, drops a little bit further to the south, and you've got 50 dew points in the 50s down to about New York City. So that's a pretty decent shot of dry air. It pulls out only to have the next shot for later next week, and then it gets humid again for a day or two before another front goes by. You get the idea. All right, let me get back to the board here. All right, let's go over what's going to be going on for the rest of this week and through the weekend and next week. So here's my plan of attack. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. Provided that there's no, assuming that there's not much going on, I may skip the live stream tomorrow so that you guys can just enjoy yourselves. You shouldn't be watching weather live streams on the 4th of July when there's no weather going on. So have fun, beach picnic, barbecues, fireworks shows tomorrow night. Just whatever you do, please do it safely. And Friday, I'll do a live stream, and a long live stream. Plus, we'll have weather in 5, and Patreon members, you'll get your weather in 10 as well. Now, I am going to be on vacation Saturday through the following Sunday, so it's 9 days. I'm going to be up in upstate New York in the woods somewhere, up in western New York. I have no idea what kind of internet signal I'm going to have. I am going to bring my stuff with me. I was told by Verizon that I should have a signal there, and I could use my phone as a hotspot. So hopefully that will let me get on my laptop. So let's assuming that I have a signal that I can work with. I will do weather in 5s every day, but I will not do a long live stream next week on any day unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay, but barring a surprise, I can't see it. And to be frank, I kind of need a break because this does burn you out after a while when you're doing stuff all day long, 7 days a week. So I need a little bit of a break. But you'll get the weather in 5s. It is assuming I have a signal. You'll have updates on my website, and Patreon members will have updates as well. If I don't have a signal, then it's going to be a lot more sporadic, and I will probably only be able to post when I go to town. You know, if I decide to go to Starbucks for a couple of hours, and then I'll be able to put some stuff up. But for the most part, coverage next week is going to be a lot less than it usually is until I get back, and then we'll get back to normal. I have this ongoing record since I started doing my websites back in 2014, I believe it was. I have not missed a single day. I have posted at least one website post every single day and one Facebook post every single day for the last almost 5 years. Okay, I really want to keep that record intact, so I will do whatever I can to accomplish that. All right. In the meantime, folks, have a great 4th of July holiday. Again, please travel safely. If you're dealing with fireworks, have a professional do it, or just please be extra careful with that sort of stuff. Excuse me. All right, Anthony. Yes. Okay. For those of you who would like, I haven't done this in a while, but I do have my weather platform on Patreon. Here is the link to it on the chat. There we go. And it's my subscription platform. You get a lot of extra weather and extra videos, and you can message me anytime. And it's just $2 a month. Okay, so there's the link to that, and it goes a long way to support everything I'm doing. It gets me some cigars and some fishing gear, and I'm a very happy man. All right, so everybody have a great 4th of July. And by the way, the links are all over the place. They're on my website. They're on my Facebook page. So they're very, very easy to get to in case you can't access the chat for whatever reason. It's patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And don't forget, too, you can also download my free weather app, which is going to be, the update is being pushed through next week. So hopefully we'll have the update in the new app will automatically take the local forecast and the local radar to your specific location. So no matter where you are, it'll go straight to you. Right now, you have to, every time you go in it, you have to put in your location manually, and you have to move the radar manually. But with the update, you won't have to do that anymore. Okay, and also for those of you who are on my partners page, Angry Ben of Angry Ben's Angry Weather, he focuses on New York City. His app will be coming out in the next 2 weeks. And you could have both of them. He focuses on more on New York City. There is going to be some overlap between the two, but there's a lot of stuff that's on mine that won't be on his, and there's some stuff on his that won't be on mine. So you could have both apps, and both are free. And the link to that is now also on the chat board. Or just go to Google Play or go to the App Store and search Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, or just plain old Joe Chaffee. All right. Have a great holiday, folks. Be safe, and we'll see you on Friday.